Good morning, guys. Welcome back to the Do Not Listen to This podcast. I'm Harold.
Zach.
Olive.
Tyler.
And this morning, well, first off, welcome back. You have obviously not heeded our warning, and you're listening to this podcast for some reason.
Yeah,
so
you made it this far.
This morning, we're going to be discussing
you.
educational systems and what that means. So we kind of thought that as a group here who's all involved in schooling to some capacity, is 3 students, a teacher. One of the students is actually pursuing education right now as their own
Some
education.
unknown reason, yeah.
So we're
Just
gonna try to kind of tackle where we're at in our society right now and where we're heading.
Totally. So I'm going into education. I'm currently at a tech center studying early childhood education and human services. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been super cool being the only male in this really early childhood field. Not the only one, but the only male in my daycare center and at school. So it's been a lot of fun being a male role model there. And just talking about the education system and kind of my experience. I don't specifically remember this in 2nd grade, but my mom told me this later, that my 2nd grade teacher was just hassling my mom super hard to get me on ADHD medication. And I mean, I'm fidgety, and I was super into dragons more than whatever book they were trying to read.
Oh, yeah, same.
But, I mean, I don't know, I feel like in a form we all have ADHD, in quotation marks. You know, we're all restless. But she tried super hard to get me on ADHD meds. So hearing this, and then going into high school, I'm like, ADHD is bad. You know, it's overdiagnosed. It's this, it's this, it's this. When I'm a teacher, I never want to, never going to diagnose anybody. And then I go into the daycare center, and I meet this kid that got diagnosed with ADHD. And he's bouncing up the walls, and he won't focus, and he won't sit. And it's like, oh my gosh. All right, I get it. I understand your perspective. I can understand that it's hard to have this crazy kid. I still don't think,
it's hard for him,
medicating all the, it is hard for him. But medicating all the kids probably isn't the best way to do it. But I can kind of empathize with the teachers now.
That's awesome. It's interesting, we talked about nostalgia on our last podcast and kind of thinking back, too, and how the world has changed. And how our education system has changed or not changed as our world has changed, I think. The traditional public school system that we're still kind of in the midst of right now. And I know a lot of places, especially here in Vermont, we're trying to kind of get out of that model.
Yeah, we're doing some good work, but we're still.
But that was born in the Industrial Revolution, right? Where we're basically trying to train kids to be just another cog on the wheel, go be part of the machine, go into the industrial labor force, conform, obey, just do this X, Y, and Z, do it this way, rote memorization, all that stuff. And it's not individualized or anything. It's just this is what we're basically trying to produce a particular student or a particular outcome. And I think we're trying to move away from that now.
Yeah.
What do you guys feel about that?
It seems like institutionalized education is almost entirely predicated on conformity and standardization, and it seems like the grading system is structured to reward people who value quantity over quality. And kids are pretty much learning to just read textbooks and regurgitate facts over understand what they're learning, and I think we're trying to move away from that, but that's definitely been the structure that's been there.
Yeah, I know in high school we study for the test. We just need to know the questions on the test.
You don't study to learn, you study for the test, and then you forget it,
I just
and
need
it's
to get
news.
the A. It doesn't matter after that.
That brings up an awesome question. What is learning? How do we define learning?
I don't know, I feel like in a way to learn, it's something you have to pursue. It's not something you can really be forced into, because really if somebody says you have to learn this, you have to do this, you have to do this, and you don't really understand it or
The
see
students
why
got to see value in what the
because
teachers
maybe I will
making
learn
them.
it. Maybe I will learn it and I'll pass my tests and stuff. Maybe I'll work hard enough to do that. But why am I going to keep it there if I had no thought myself of pursuing it and stuff? What I really think the ideal focus should be is just showing kids how specific tasks and like learning and stuff that they might need to know in the future can be useful to them and why they might want to and like why it'd be good for them. I mean, that's the whole reason we're in high school, right? It's because we know it's good for us.
Yeah. Which history class do you want to take? The one that you need to know all the wars and their date and what happened in them? Or the one where you want to learn from the mistakes and the triumphs of the past and then apply them to the future?
Right.
Which class do you want to be in?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I think, one of the kind of the differentiation I would make there is like the learning what to think versus learning how to think. Right? So rather than just learning these specific facts or the specific way of thinking, but actually learn how to think for yourself and how to think really in a way that you're using, your best judgment in that thinking too, and you're not just regurgitating what someone else has told you and thinking and calling that thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
The educational system is, I mean, at least now we can say, many schools are, moving towards a more like versatile teaching standard, because the truth is there's kids that are really good kids that really do have interest in their future and getting that diploma and wanting to learn and dropping out still just because they don't think they can do it. They just don't think they can make themselves do it. And it's not like they don't want to or that they're bad kids, because they don't. There's kids who genuinely don't know what to do and they get scared. And as teenagers, a lot of the times when things get scary or hard, a lot of us will sometimes be like, okay, that makes me feel bad, so I'll
see you later.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Like, make that go away.
Yeah, that's really sad because in the past and probably still in a lot of schools, alternative genius is being eradicated from the children, and they're being trained to become soldiers for the corporations they'll eventually work for.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Without a
How
doubt.
how do we create a system that reaches those kids that can help those kids to excel that are feeling that way?
Well, I know for a fact that every single high school student on the planet has something that really does interest them. They have passions, they have things that they like to learn about too, like things that
absolutely.
we teach here. Like every high school kid you ask, I'm sure they have learned something in their school system that they thought was really cool, they really liked, they really found useful. I know for a fact that there's things that, aren't necessarily taught to make things interesting, quote unquote, but like taught like they normally were in school that I still found interesting just because like I found it useful and stuff. Like there's a difference to me, like, going to biology and like learning about like viruses, human anatomy, like stuff like that that's like really cool and kind of applies. And then like learning how to graph a quadratic equation, which is really useful to the right person, okay? But I promise you I'm not going to be an engineer someday. I really am not. It's not happening.
Not my thing.
So I'm most definitely probably not going to use that.
Most definitely, probably.
Most definitely
probably.
But I still have to pretend like I need to learn it and I need to do it because they said so.
And
Not because
should you have to do that?
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Like, how do we
our
determine
lines.
what the base level of things are that everybody needs to know versus like, okay,
Right.
this is the path that you're taking, so now you need to know this more stuff.
Right.
I think there's like, in some of these conversations that we're having as teachers, and talking about like the personalized learning plans and things, sometimes it gets taken to the extreme where it's like, oh, now everything you learn has to be something you're really super interested in, and if that's not the path that you're going on, then you shouldn't be learning it or whatever, and that's not the case either, right? There's like a foundation
Right.
that needs to be there for anything. Like you need to be able, in our society, you need to be able to read and to engage with, things that have been written, things that are coming at you, like even just walking down the street, you need to be able to read signs. You need to be literate in our society.
Right, like math in like middle school and like early high school and stuff, like the stuff that was actually kind of important. Like I still despised that. I really did. Like I didn't want to do that, but I still think it was really useful for me to learn that stuff. Like now, after I'm like, okay, it's probably something useful to me. I'm probably going to need that in the future. I want to be smart. I want to be able to know these things, but some other classes I've taken, I'm still kind of like, okay, why did I do that? Like, why didn't I? Time is a very valuable thing.
Yeah.
And I think especially for early, high school kids, where that's kind of a high school kid's like, okay, where do I want my life to go constantly? I mean, I know I am. I know tons of people are. Where do I want to work? How do I want my life to be? Where do I want to live? What do I want to do after high school? And high school is really that, that step stool, to get up there to your future, And
yeah,
it's got to be something you find worth your time and worth your future, because time is short,
I've been doing this this training with this awesome lady called Janine Fitzgerald, and she was telling us about this statistic of the study that was done, and they went to like all these great like big companies and asked them, what do you want your employees to be? What do you want them to have? And out of like the 10 things, 8 of them were just social skills. I want them to be able to have good communication. I want them to be flexible and this and that. And we don't teach any of that in school.
That is something that we're moving towards, especially in Vermont. Because right now we've got the transferable skills. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the big thing that we look at. And as we're transitioning, here at our school to a proficiency-based school rather than a grades-based school and what that looks like, that's one of the first things that we're kind of looking at is how can we take these 5 skills from the state of Vermont that says are these transferable skills that you need anywhere you go, and how can we kind of help you to be more well-versed in those. And this project actually stems out of those transferable skills. In that, like, the very first one is clear and effective communication. So what we're doing here is actually practicing that in a real-world way. Like, it's a real lab. We're a public project. We've got this going out to the internet.
Work. No.
I changed my mind.
Oh, I don't want to know. I'm kidding.
You guys are actually like getting credit for this though. Like that's
Are we?
pretty freaking awesome. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
wouldn't you agree?
I thought we were doing this for fun.
See,
is
that how
education is fun?
Yeah, exactly. But the fear of that is like, I'm not saying it's a good fear to have, but people are scared of, like, parents especially, colleges, futuristic, like, employers, stuff like that might look back on these new transferable skills, at least now, and I know some schools are moving towards proficiencies instead of grades, like, completely, which I think is awesome. Like, I mean, in my opinion, I think that's great, but, parents are worried about sending their kids there because they don't know if a college is going to look at that differently, because there are people out there that are like, I had to do it this way, so everyone else should.
I got through it.
Yeah.
I did it the same way.
Nobody's different, right? I did it, so everyone else on the planet should be able to do it.
I made it through. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. It's not like that, though.
I mean, I feel like high school has turned into, we're not preparing each other preparing kids for college or the workplace. We're preparing it for the college application, because kids are being stressed out. You need to get all A's. You need to get this much community service. You need to do basketball. You need to do baseball. You need to do this. You need to do all of these things.
Right.
So you have this great resume, and so you can send it to college.
So you can get into college, and then you can learn.
And then you can learn up there. And then when we get there, and we don't know how to study for a test because we're used to just doing it the night before and then getting A's because whatever.
See, I think an example I like to use for proficiency is doing well. Like, I personally, on a time where proficiencies have just worked really well for me is, last year in school I was taking a biology course, and a lot of book reading, textbook stuff like that. But it was proficiency based, and at the time I had taken up a lot of extra hours at work, and I was playing a sport after school, and I had family, whatever else I needed to do. I was, even if I did want to do my homework, I had very little time to do so. So I wasn't doing homework that often. But in this proficiency-based class, I still got an A+ in that class by the end of the quarter because I studied, and I did the tests, and I worked really hard in class, and I really actually genuinely wanted to learn this stuff because I think biology is pretty cool, personally. But if it wasn't proficiency-based, I probably would have failed that class because I wasn't doing the homework because I didn't have time to, but I was still proving that I was learning something. I was still going out of my way to learn something, get A's on the test every single week. We had a test, and I got an A every single time because I really liked it, really wanted to learn it. But I wasn't doing the homework, and normally that makes sense. I mean, if you're showing that you're learning, who cares if you're doing busy work? Right. But in a class that's not proficiency-based, I would have failed, even though I clearly learned everything that everyone else in that class learned. I learned it too. But because I didn't do that busy work, I would have failed. Because
you didn't have all of the little numbers that get averaged together, which
exactly
isn't really an accurate snapshot of your learning.
Exactly, and that's just I think.
And there's been studies on homework, hasn't there? About how it's not beneficial.
They actually cut it out in the middle school at our school.
That's
my
right.
brother doesn't do homework anymore.
Yeah. Over in Europe, they're like getting rid of everywhere.
Yeah, there are countries.
I've been fairly satisfied with my high school experience though, because I had an opportunity to go to a tech school, which is a really cool thing that is it's fairly recent that we're sending children to tech schools. That wasn't around our parents' era, but I go for design and illustration. And my first 2 years of high school, I wasn't doing that. And I was an A student, and I was pretty much putting my head down, regurgitating facts and stuff like that. And I wasn't really learning anything. And then when I started going to tech, my grades definitely dropped off, but I still feel like the last 2 years of high school is where I learned all of my valuable life skills. Not just at tech, but I think it was when I got out of the idea that grades were the most important thing in the entire world.
I think the thing with the tech centers is that it's lost stigma. Because it was definitely around when I was in school.
Okay.
But it was always VOTEC, BOCES, there was this really underlying stigma around that.
Mm-hmm.
And only these certain kids go there, the special kids go there, whatever.
Right, that's what my grandparents said to me about it.
Now it's much more inclusive and hey, this is a really awesome opportunity, and we've been able to frame that system differently.
I know my tech center and their student council there has been working really hard trying to knock out that stigma.
Yeah.
They've been working trying to make new rules and guidelines and different things, and they're dealing with that, trying to get more.
I think that's really an awesome place to pursue any passions or things you do want to learn about, because our school doesn't have necessarily all those things that the tech program has.
Yeah.
So it's really nice that we give that opportunity to everyone now. It's not just okay, you did really well, so you can pursue what you want to pursue now. That shouldn't be something you have to do.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we struggle with as the teachers and as the folks trying to mold this proficiency-based thing and trying to enter into that and really make it count is how do we change that? How do we change our system as a whole and really change the system rather than just keeping the same old and changing the language that goes along with it? Because we can do proficiency based and then still do it just like grades. Instead of getting 100%, now you're getting a level 4, and then average all that stuff together. But how can we really collect the evidence and demonstrate evidence of true learning? And then how do we, as we collect that evidence, how do we document that and stuff for you guys? And how do we make that legible for university and for colleges and for workplace afterwards?
Well, I think more and more colleges and workplaces are being pushed towards looking at that the same way now, especially because there really are a lot of schools, like more than I thought, going towards proficiency-based learning. And I don't think colleges or jobs are just going to shut that many out. I'm sure there is going to be some, but
Yeah, I mean,
we're going to have to document it in a way like that shows that we worked hard, that we're willing, that we want to do this. We weren't just coasting, to
and
get
for the
out of high
teachers,
school.
it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be like, all right, you
Right.
got to read these chapters and then do the test and then write the paper. You're going to have to think outside the box and have different, activities.
Right.
I think since that's so hard to document, that's why a lot of kids are unhappy with the path that they chose. It seems like a lot of artists never came to fruition because people instructed them to find like a secure job, and they never knew how to document like their real learning and their real passion. Like how many of us, like how many people do you know who like went off to university for no other reason than it was like what you're told that you're supposed to do?
Yeah.
And like all of us just arbitrarily choosing career paths because we can't document what we really have been doing.
Yeah.
Right.
So through your education, Olive, you're doing a pretty awesome internship
Yeah.
right now. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I started an apprenticeship a little less than a year ago at a tattoo shop in Winooski. So I'm a tattoo apprentice and also a body piercer, but I might stop doing that because it grosses me out quite a bit. But tattooing is what I'm really about. I'm a couple months away from getting my license, which is really cool because I am only 17. And people are generally really surprised by that when I'm tattooing them. They're like, "Oh, how old are you?" I'm like, don't ask me that." But it's been really cool. That's definitely in the last year or so. That's been a place where I've really, really fell in love with learning in a very different way than school has taught me. And it's been really cool. It's definitely been something that I'll treasure forever. I don't really know what else to say.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just been really great. I work Saturday and Sunday, and every weekend I look forward to going to my job, and I never feel like I'm putting my head down and just doing mindless work. I really, really am excited every weekend to learn something new about it, and it's all I think about really, during the week too. I'm watching videos of tattoo artists. I'm watching Needles and Pins on Viceland, which is awesome, and you should watch it because it's the coolest show in the whole world. It's about tattoo and the culture and the industry around the world. It's very cool.
That's a really awesome opportunity,
Yeah,
as
I'm
well.
super lucky that I found that so early because you don't need a high school degree, you don't need a college degree for that job.
You need the experience.
You do need the experience.
You need to be proficient in
Right,
that, right?
yeah.
I don't want a tattoo artist tattooing on me who's
for
not
sure.
proficient in what they're doing.
Yeah, you have to know.
Either the art side or the sanitation side. I'm sure
Yeah.
you're learning a lot in there, too.
Oh, for sure. There's a lot to that. Yeah, you definitely need you need good social skills because it's still a customer service job and you're still working with people, and it's not even just you're working with people who are trying to get a bag of groceries. You're working with people who are putting something on their body for the rest of their life, so you really have to be willing to cooperate, which was really hard when I started out because I had never really had a job like that.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, you don't need the diploma, which is cool because I've pretty much found my life path. I have my dream job.
Yeah, if I'm getting a tattoo, I'm not going to be like, whoa, hold on.
Where's your diploma?
Where's your diploma?
Where's
Where did
Yeah.
you go to college?
Yeah.
Some people ask me where I went
How
to
many
college.
math
But what
courses
do
did you
you
like,
ask
no,
your tattoo artist? You
How?
ask to see your portfolio. Let me
Yeah,
see what
that's
you've
definitely-
done.
How long
Let me
have you
see
been doing
evidence
this?
of the learning that you've
Yeah,
had.
people don't ask. I mean, I've had a couple of people ask me where I went to college, and I'm like, nope, I'm still in high school. Please don't ask me that. I don't want. Yeah, but it's mostly when people look for a tattoo artist, they're not looking for your degree or your resume. They're looking for your portfolio and your experience at tattoo shops. And that's where it's valuable. And that's a way to document your learning. You can't do that in high school, but in the workforce, or at least in the tattoo industry, that's the way that you document your passion, is your portfolio.
Yeah. Well, why can't we do it that way in high school?
Yeah, I wish.
No, like seriously.
If I could carry myself through high school based on my portfolio, that'd be sick. I mean, I guess I am doing that at Tech.
But that's one of the things that we're talking about as we're having these conversations somewhat behind the scenes, and we want the student involvement in this process too, in becoming a real legit like proficiency based graduation school, rather than just changing the language or whatever. But how do we do that? How do we collect the evidence? How do we demonstrate that? Is there a way that we can collect a body of evidence through your high school career that's like a portfolio that would be reviewed by maybe some peers as well as, a team of faculty from the school? Almost like a doctoral dissertation kind of thing, if you think of that like level, but putting that into a high school. Like,
yeah, that would be cool. Great.
And one thing I wanted to bring up, Zach, you might be kind of interested in this. You might be able to shine some light on it. Working with kids,
Sure.
But I remember back in middle school, Olivia, now you really want to be a tattoo artist. You're really pursuing it.
Yeah,
You got that. But it's funny because I remember back, like, middle school, like, when I first met you and stuff, like, when we were really young, you were always drawing, and I always was like, wow, that's really cool.
Thanks.
And you were always, like,
yeah,
really
middle school when I was
it.
drawing the members of My Chemical Romance every day. Don't talk about it. It's fine.
Even before you were, like, I want to be a tattoo artist, you were, like, drawing, you were really into that. And I think it's really cool to see that, like, in someone who's a kid that really doesn't know what they want to do yet, but, like, they have that stuff. And I think it's really sad when it gets shut down by the system, like, somebody that's got a passion, they really like doing something, like, you're a really good drawer, nobody's going to be like, when you're at that age, no one's going to be like, oh, you know what? You should make a career out of that. Like,
no one said that to me, but my parents were, I was pretty lucky, they were really supportive of me going into the art industry, but not everybody was. And you actually, when you set up your classes at the beginning of the year, your guidance counselor will pull out a piece of paper, and it's the same piece of paper that you've been writing your classes on for the last 4 years. And when I started high school as, 14 or something, I wrote as my end-all career path that I was going to be a lawyer. That was really what I wrote. And at that time, I really didn't want that, but I wanted to impress the people who were watching me. And I thought that I would be a disappointment if I ever, took up art. I think the year after that, I decided it was going to be lighting design because I wanted to go to school for something that I knew made a lot of money. And I didn't really care about lighting design, really at all. But it was more artistic, and it was kind of like the middle ground. My grandparents were like, oh, that's a good career. And it was still kind of artsy. But it wasn't really what I wanted. I really was just trying to impress people on paper. And I should have been focusing on my passion.
That's huge. And that brings back to, the grades piece, too, because so much of that is, making that impression on people, right? We kind of end up identifying ourselves by our grades sometimes. Oh, I'm an A student or I'm an F student or whatever. But then, you get to the really high ranking part where you're going for first in class, second in class.
Yeah. And
sometimes choices get made in that aren't anything to do with learning. It's okay, which of these classes is going to let me get that, 4.0 GPA, A plus, easier than the other one, or which one of these is going to guarantee me that, because I don't want to take Mr. Griffin's class because I might, get an 85 in that class because he's really, he's got high standards versus this other class that might, I could just coast through and get a 99.
Right. I think that's something we really should move towards as, a educational system, because, the example of Olivia, there's tons of stuff that kids really like when they're in, younger ages and stuff, and they're really into it, and it's not something that they're just going to get bored of in a week, they still really like it. And I thought that about tons of stuff, growing up, but I've never, ever once thought, I can do something with this. Like, oh, I can make this a hobby or a job. Like, I can do something with this. And nobody in school ever told me anything like that, you know.
There's something really incredible about getting to have those greater experiences that come out of that, too.
Right.
Like, I think about this stuff with my daughters all the time as they're growing up. My youngest daughter, her life aspiration right now is to be a sheep shearer. And
Your daughters are sick. Tell your daughters to hit me up. I want to hang out with them.
Is that Rosie or
that's Maggie?
That's Maggie.
My
That's
youngest.
sick. I want to be a sheep
She's a 4-year-old, and that's her life aspiration. And this past weekend, our neighbors actually have sheep, and they were doing the shearing, so we got to go over and be a part of that and hang out.
Good for her.
And then we got a big bag of wool from our neighbor. And
does she want to spin it? I have a.
Yeah, my wife does with the drop spindle.
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
Right.
no.
And that's what I think we need to see is that encouragement. Like, you went to school and said, I want to be a sheep shearer. How many teachers are
How
going
many
to be
people
like,
laugh at you?
Yeah, you're not going to make any money.
You
What
want
are
to
you
be a
talking
sheep
about?
shearer? Yeah.
What are you going to try to make money? We don't.
But they actually do make pretty decent
yeah,
money. You
I
get
bet.
$80, $100 a head of sheep, and
That's awesome.
But I still think if you went into educational standard system into a math class, you're like, I'm going to be a sheep shearer someday. I don't really need this. Nobody's going to be like, oh, that's awesome. You should take this class.
Right.
This.
Yeah.
There's no path for that. I've
there's
never
no
heard,
sheep shearing 101.
I've never heard any teacher. I feel like at the beginning of high school, and the very beginning of the year, teachers would kind of talk about where their class could take you, and nobody ever said sheep shearer, but also nobody ever said artist. Nobody ever said musician.
Well, it's interesting too because I think those experiences can be really fundamental, not just in the confirming this is where you're going, but it can also help you decide this is where you don't want to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think when I was growing up, I really wanted to be a veterinarian for all the way up
wanted to be a
until 7th grade.
Yeah.
And then I went and
Everybody
job
did.
shadowed a veterinarian and watched
wow.
3 cats get castrated and spayed and dogs
Yeah.
get neutered. That was the whole day that I was there, and I was like, this is totally not what I really thought it was.
Yeah.
I'm not just getting to hang out with animals all day.
For sure.
I wanted to be a chef for the longest
Oh,
time.
nice.
I did. But my mom would be like, you want to cook dinner? I'm like, no, I don't want to cook
No.
dinner. I don't want to do that. I just really like the idea of having my own restaurant.
You get the hat. The big white hat.
I
That's
just
what you
like
really
being
wanted.
behind the grill and being like, hey Jerry, having regulars and stuff. I like that idea.
That's what I want to do
Yeah.
still. That still hasn't changed for me so far.
And you have that real life experience where you're working in a restaurant right now,
Oh,
too,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm working in a cruddy little pizza shop right now, but I get to make the food. All handmade stuff, so that's cool.
And you're moving up in the ranks.
He's pretty good.
Yeah,
I've had
it's true.
Tyler's food, actually.
Thank you.
He's inventing his own meal. He makes a poutine pizza.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well,
Make a poutine pizza?
That's one of my
That's-
teenagers' meals.
It's
I
not
make some
on the
pretty good
menu
stuff.
yet, but if you know that Tyler's working and you go
Oh,
in and
yeah.
you ask for the poutine pizza.
Oh yeah.
Why am I
I'll
just
hook
hearing
you up.
about
Are you
this?
now just hearing about
Yes,
this? Can you-
Tyler.
Gravy instead of pizza sauce. It's a miracle.
Oh my god.
The
That
secret is
sounds really
you use
gross.
potato wedges instead of fries because fries get soggy, but potato wedges stay crunchy.
It's not a secret anymore. No!
But yeah,
Copyrighted.
I definitely had, luckily, the support of my family the whole time where I was like,
Oh, yeah.
I
And
wanna
they
own a
supported your
restaurant.
poutine pizza?
Well, I was making dinner when I was 9 years old, okay? I was
Yeah, okay.
putting spices on the, doing, I was
Yeah.
like, this smells good. I didn't know
Salt
what
and
anything
pepper, those are spices.
Olivia, I
Sorry.
swear, I'm about to ruin your career.
Oh my god.
But, yeah, I never actually got a lot of that from school, which is weird because, I look at colleges and stuff. Colleges support that a lot, being a chef and stuff. There's lots of colleges for that.
My dad went to NECI for to be a chef, and he was a chef for a million years. And then he
Whoa.
was like, hey, I don't want to do this
Must
anymore.
make some good food.
Right, yeah.
Years.
And then he became an electrician, and now he...
Wow.
Yeah, he went through, the apprenticeship, and he's been an electrician now for, I don't even remember how long, a really long time. And now he teaches a class. He's some sort of I don't know.
That's awesome.
He does something. He teaches apprentices, basically. He trains them. Yeah, but that was a really big life switch, right in the middle.
Yeah.
He wasn't young when that happened. He had been cooking for years and years and years. And nobody ever tells you that you can do that.
that you can actually like try one career and then switch to a
he really
totally
just
different
dropped
career
it
at
and
some
did something
point.
completely different that he had never, like, they're not related in any way. No one tells you that the career that you pick when you get out of high school isn't the one that you have to have for your entire life.
And I think like that brings it back to, I mentioned the those transferable skills earlier, right? And so like those are the things that in any career that you end up in. So whether you're cooking, tattooing, electricianing, like that those are helpful in that field, right? Mm-hmm. Because the 5 ones that we've identified here in Vermont is the clear and effective communication, creative and practical problem solving, whatever that might look like in that field. You're always going to run into problems and have to solve them. Mm-hmm. Informed and integrative thinking, so like taking the knowledge that you have and applying that, and then integrating that with new knowledge as you assimilate it. The responsible and involved citizenship, so actually being part of something greater than just yourself also, being involved in your community. And then self-direction, so like actually like learning to be self-directed and motivated.
It's funny like listening to you read those and thinking about like as soon as you were saying them, I was just like thinking of scenarios at my job where like all of those I have to use like every day.
Yeah, like every day. Yeah.
It's like not avoidable. Those are like straight up how you be a person.
And it's one of those things, like it really doesn't matter where you are. You could be working at McDonald's, you could be, whatever, any career to imagine it, you're going to need all 5 of those things. Like, so and that's why we're like looking at these as, how do we learn these things and really, because once you have these kind of transferable skills, you can learn the other stuff, right? And it's not to be all like fluffy, flu, whatever about like, your actual content. Like I said, like I don't want a tattoo artist who's never actually experienced tattooing. I don't want to go in for surgery to somebody who hasn't like, memorized a whole lot about surgical practices and experienced that and practiced that a lot.
Yeah, it's that's hard because nobody wants that, but you have to learn somehow.
Yeah.
No, people get really stressed when they realize that I'm new because you don't always want to tell people, and it kind of sucks, like, there's a level of, like, dishonesty there. You never lie to them, but you do kind of feel like you're kind of, like, misdirecting people, which sucks, but you gotta learn somehow, like...
Yeah.
Well, I think of your story, Tyler, with the guy with the sandwich.
Yeah, this guy came in one time, and he wanted a sandwich, and it was just, like, a BLT, like nothing special, and I was right there training somebody to work on the substation, and he was making it, but I was like right there, I was telling him what to do and stuff like that, and the guy was like, whoa, like he always had, like he had this jokey tone with him too, so I was like smiling the whole time, but he was like, so this guy's never made a sandwich before, and he's like, well, not here, like he doesn't know where the stuff is, like he doesn't know how to make it here, how we do it. And he was like, so what, this is on my dime, is it? And I was like, yep, gotta learn somehow. And he was making it, and the guy was like, this is ridiculous, I own a restaurant. He like started getting really mad, and I was like, you do own a restaurant? He goes, yes. I'm like, then you know that people have to learn how to make things. They don't just have that innate ability to do that. And he just got really more mad, and he was like, I want my money back. And I was like, no. Like, we're making your food, we've done nothing wrong. No. And then he was like, then I'm leaving. I'm like, we have your money, that's okay.
Tell your friends.
Yeah, I was like, he's making your food as you instructed him to, and I'm right here making sure he does it. Like, he has to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that. And that's what I think makes things difficult, is when people are, like, very close-minded, because there are people like that in the world, especially with the educational system. Like, which I don't think they're necessarily all wrong. Like, I want to, in my mind, I've always wanted to, like, own a restaurant, do culinary stuff. But if I just go to culinary school and do nothing else, and then what happens if that, like what your dad, like what happens if I want to become an electrician later?
You get to be the proverbial glass cannon.
Yeah, exactly.
My dad actually said that everything that he learned about cooking and being a chef, he learned working in restaurants and not in culinary school, which is funny.
Right, yeah, it's totally different.
I guess he said culinary school kind of taught him about like a scientific formula, because like cooking and baking especially is like pretty scientific, but everything that he learned, the more like transferable skills and also like a more personal level of cooking was in jobs and experience and learning. being somebody who is being trained, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's, especially the restaurants, wherever you go, totally different. Like,
Yeah, everywhere's
It's like
different.
any job.
yeah. Well,
any job.
you know what, that's totally fair. I just haven't worked at a lot of other jobs.
Yeah.
No, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I think anything that we really do when we put our minds to, we're learning about life also, not just that, content or that context. We're learning other things even though we don't necessarily think of them as learning sometimes.
Yeah.
Even the dumbest jobs that you get when you're a sophomore in high school, like your first job, that probably sucks.
Oh, yeah.
It's
me
probably
exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
we're at bottle room.
Bottle room.
Doing bottle
room,
redemption.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
probably the worst job you'll ever have,
Yeah.
and it's probably miserable and you hate it, but it's also probably really important.
Yeah. And there will be times in your life in the future where you'll look back and be like, oh, maybe it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad.
I look back
Right.
when I worked at Price Chopper and it's like, hey, I actually had some things going really well for me then.
Right. Like, I really liked the people. That's important for me. But I...
People.
well, that's fair.
Okay.
I worked there for so long that, I thought it was my first job, so I was like, man, I guess I'm supposed to hate my job, right? Like, everyone complains about work, so I guess I'm supposed to, I'd have to wake up every morning and be like, gotta go to work, but I'd really rather just not get paid and stay home and not do that.
Super easy to get in that rut.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm supposed to hate
That's
this.
funny.
Yeah,
It's
don't get me
it's
wrong.
super easy
Don't
just
get
to
me
be
wrong,
able to
I
say.
do hate industrial
My second
workplace,
job made me realize I
but-
don't hate.
And don't we do that with pretty much everything too?
Yeah.
You hear things that other people, like that teacher, whoever that teacher might be, like, oh, you have them? Oh, that's going to be horrible. And then you go into it not even realizing, but that's affected how you're thinking of that teacher and how you're already thinking of that
Oh
experience.
yeah,
A woman
actually
at
two of my favorite
Yeah,
teachers. I won't say names, but everyone told me that they were absolutely horrible and the class was going to be awful, and I went into it pretty terrified. But especially one of them is just I loved her class. It was so much fun. It was very strict. It was a pretty intense class. But I really liked it, and I really clicked with her, and it took me about 4 weeks of the class to let myself like it because I was so convinced that it was going to be terrible. But it wasn't.
Wow.
It was fun, and I learned a lot, and I kept taking her class by choice because it was awesome.
That's awesome.
Right.
There's this woman that works at the same daycare center as I did, and she used to work in a public school, and she said she loved the age group and loved the kids, but what really got to her is she'd go into the staff room and the teachers would just be talking about all the bad kids and this and that and oh yeah, you can't do this with that kid. Not productive, not positive things. It's
Right.
just
Venting.
just venting, and it just made her job just so much worse and miserable.
Absolutely. So we're kind of coming to the end of our time here for this week, but how has education changed in your own lifetime? Has there been anything that stands out for you, from maybe when you started school to now? Have you seen anything changing, maybe for the better, maybe for the worse? What's that look like for you guys?
I was definitely my early years of high school. I was admittably struggling with the school system, and I thought, wow, I'm just bad at school, and I'm planning on, and I think I'm going to be now, but no one in my family has ever graduated high school before, so I had this drive. I was I need to graduate high school. I want to, change things for the better and stuff, but it was hard, and it got harder, and it snowballed. It wasn't something I was oh, this got stressful, let me get away with it. It would just get so much stress and just keep piling up, and get worse and worse, and it just was really hard for me. But then, I got shown by some of the faculty members at our school, some of the guidance counselors, stuff like that. A lot of this proficient learning stuff that we were trying out. I was kind of part of the original test group almost, where I could take these classes where it was what do you want to learn about, what do you want to do, and I chose something, and I really liked it, and I really learned about it, and they gave me a way to show it, that I'm learning something, as far as English goes, typing up an essay or whatever, but it's about something I really enjoy. like Harold.
I was gonna say, what are some other ways that you've shown some of that stuff this year? Like this year, I don't even know.
Oh, yeah. Well, this year I've been working a lot with Harold, and I know I've done some history research and stuff that I was really into, and I wrote essays on that, and I really enjoyed it.
It's okay. They know how nerdy you are.
Okay, yeah, right.
We mentioned this in the first episode.
Yeah, sure,
you
we
can
did.
say
We
what
did.
it.
It was historical German fencing and sword fighting. So
Loser.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know. Right. If we ever go back to swords, though, I'm not gonna look like a loser. Right? If guns ever just disappear, I'm gonna look like a real cool kid.
That's true.
But
Out with guns,
No,
honestly.
and being able to see
should
you
all
know,
sword
like
fight.
come into that and learn and grow through that, not only in the informational context of it and where it comes from, and like the sources we look back at, but also in the application of that to modern fencing and sport fencing.
Right.
And seeing you compete, that's been really awesome.
Yeah.
And then, if you want to talk about what you do with like the gaming group right now.
Oh yeah.
God, it just gets nerdier.
Yeah, it does get nerdier. So I'm just
Bring it
a
out the
huge
internet.
geek. I'm about as geeky as you get, but yeah. But I also just want to say I enjoyed, instead of being like, all right, gotta sit down and do this, pump it out. I'm saying like, oh, this is really cool. Like, oh, that's cool. That's awesome learning about stuff. But yeah, I'm now kind of like working with kids that are, part of they're on the geek pathway, just like I am. I'm the alpha geek amongst this school. So I'm a real influence to these kids. So
that's a problem.
Yeah, that is a problem. It really is. But they don't know it yet. But they are doing kind of like this role playing thing, which I am. The game master for. I'm keeping them in a line. You know how it is.
I don't.
Letting them. Yeah. Zach, your job is
creating
keeping
a
kids
world.
in
You're
line.
creating a story. Like it's
Right.
been really
Yeah.
cool. To kind
I'm being really
see that
creative with it.
happening,
Like
too.
I'm creating everything. Writing it down. And they are really having a really fun time with it. And I think, and I am too. Really, like it's really funny. A lot of laughs, a lot of fun, a lot of stuff to talk about. Like we're always like looking back, like, oh, you remember when this happened?
Yeah.
When in reality, it's just us talking about geeky stuff.
But really,
it's fun.
Underlying all of that, they're learning really cool things about social skills and stuff too.
That's true.
I
I think
there's a lot of learning
already
that
since
happens
we've been
in that.
doing this, they've learned to settle down a little more and
Actually focus and pay attention. And I mean, you've got kids in
have
there
engaged
that
in really real conversations.
from 5th grade to 12th grade, coming together in a group and actually working together collaboratively to tell this story. It's really
Right.
cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Sorry. I'm also the geek that's coming out.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
See,
true.
Harold's got my
Yeah.
back. You guys are probably going to beat me up after the podcast, but Harold's got my back.
I'm gonna shove you in a locker. So have I changed through school?
Or has school changed in your lifetime?
Yeah, I definitely starting elementary. I was like the worst kid. I was getting in so much fights and didn't pay attention.
I thought you were cool. I was right there with you.
Thanks, T. So that was elementary, and then middle school, I mellowed out and stopped hitting people. Then in high school, but it was all I was always in the special education classes. I have a learning disability, so there's always that stigma there. So school always just kind of sucked. But I had this passion of working with kids and working with people, and that was always really fun. So I thought, it would be fun going back into school and education because I guess I'm insane and make it suck a little less or try to change it something. One teacher told me that there's two type of teachers. The one that really loved school and just couldn't get enough of it, so they went back into it. And then the one that had a super bad experience and now wants to change it.
Yeah.
And I am definitely the latter. And I'll go into knowing how I felt and how I was in all, the stages of school. And, trying to make it better.
And then, you try to lie to yourself and say, well, teachers get the summers off. It's okay.
They get the summers
not
off.
Realize how much work actually happens
Yeah.
during that time.
It'll be cool.
How many meetings?
How many meetings? having to deal with parents. Kids are great. Parents are.
Yeah. Parent-teacher conferences? Nah.
We'll figure it out.
Student-teacher conferences.
Teachers.
Well, that's definitely one of the things we're moving towards also, and like with the PLPs is really like getting the student involved and engaged, and getting the parent to support the student in that pathway, whatever that looks like. That's huge. Like you guys had said, with the grades and stuff earlier, like a lot of times the student might be okay with that, with not having homework, not having those traditional A through E or A through D and then F grades that we somehow skip E for some reason, but but the parents can have a difficulty with that, moving away from that.
You're definitely E student.
Yeah. Whatever that entails, I don't know.
I think it's a lot
I
of
could be a little
effort.
nerdy. I remember in the Sonic games, if you did really bad in a level, you'd get an E. So then going into school, I'm like, oh, where's my E? There's no E on here. Sonic games, yeah, I'm lame too.
Yeah. Yeah, Zach, don't try to hide it.
I won't hide it.
I did hear you guys talking about going to see the new Power Rangers movie.
Oh,
before
yeah.
That's not.
That's not.
I don't see where you're going with this.
I don't see any evidence from it.
Yeah, y'all tried to bring that up in the last podcast, and I was not having it.
What?
Power Rangers? Yeah.
Did we? That sounds like something we did.
Yeah, because it was the nostalgia podcast, so you guys talked
yeah.
about the new movie.
Yeah.
I don't care about it at all.
See, the thing is, it's probably going to be horrible, but the thing is, it's going to be Power Rangers, so it'll still be alright.
Oh my god.
We can go back to nostalgia. But like it'll be good since.
Has school changed for you at all? Like,
Man, I don't know. My school experience has been wild.
Man, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I
man.
went to a Waldorf school, and then I went to Fletcher Elementary, which is it's a public school,
Fletchy.
but it's pretty. I don't know. It was really small, so went to a very small school. Then I went to BFA, and then I went to a tech program. So it's
Kept
been
getting bigger.
Yeah, it's been like very different and all over the place. I'm not sure how much it's changed, like actually, like physically, how much programs have opened up or anything like that. But it's definitely become like more apparent to me that my ideal future is a reality.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really neat just to hear you guys' experiences, like kind of thinking of how those can form and shape you, and also maybe can form and shape some other folks that are, coming up and learning, trying to figure out what they want to, what pathway they want to pursue, and so sometimes it's really beneficial, to hear those experiences from others too before you try to jump right in and experience it for yourself.
What about you, Harold? Has school changed
Since I was in
yeah.
It's funny because like a lot of it has, and I think
100 years
we're still like on the verge of that, of that change. Because really, when I first started working here, it was hilarious because I went to a fairly small school. Also, it was a little bit bigger than this, but a lot of the same feeling. Like I could look at the kids and be like, "Oh, that was this kid when I was in high school. Okay, I know. Like I feel like I know that kid already. That was him. That was her.
Yeah.
And kind of compare it to those people in my own personal past. And there's actually like a lot of truth in that. It was funny, like, just being able to see, like, the roles that kids fill in the school kind of haven't really changed a whole lot yet.
Sure.
As far as, like, the actual, like, school system itself is trying to change more than it has changed, I think is where we're at right now. We're trying to figure that out and trying to really take those steps. And it's hard because you get pushback from a lot of places, like I said, the kids, the adults, the parents, as well as teachers who are stuck in that old system that are just like, nope, this is how it's always been, this is how it's going to stay.
Yeah, it's easier to do that.
A lot of parents are like,
the
I don't want
status
my
quo.
kids to be part of the test room, like, because that's scary. Like, what if
change is always something that brings fear with it.
Yep.
Shout out to Fred Griffin for being an old guy who's in for new learning, though.
Yeah.
Right.
He's sick, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, any teacher you call by the first name
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah.
It's not. I've had awesome teachers that I
Fred,
didn't, but I've never had a bad teacher. That
Yeah,
you call
Gabe
her
and Fred, shout
Gabe,
out, right?
Fred, Elizabeth, Harold.
Yep.
All these great teachers.
So, yeah, I think it's a journey, and we're still taking some of the beginning steps of that journey right now, But it is good to see that we're actually on a journey and not totally stagnant.
Right. It's the first step. It's better than nothing.
And every journey starts with the first step, right? It's like
The journey is the destination, man.
Oh, and on that note,
Zing!
thanks again for listening, guys. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Tyler, you didn't zing that time, did you?
I totally did zing. Zing, I'll do it again.
All right.
I didn't. Just so we all
Olive?
that I did not.
Yeah.
Zing.
No,
I
I'm
never,
not.
I never did. No, don't. No. I did not.
I'm not
That
too
wasn't
cool
me.
for you guys. Like Olivia's clearly.
I'm not trying to be cool. I just have respect
You're
for
trying to be
myself.
What are you
Not
talking
cool.
about?
I'm not saying.